Hey, good day, folks. It's Leon and Matt again today with the Profitable Sheep and Goat Production Podcast. We have an episode today where Matt and I are going to just kind of do a recap on our fall lambing. I know back in, was it late spring, early summer, we had an episode on out of season lambing, and both of us are done with our fall lambing, and we just thought we would go over a little bit of the results, what worked, what didn't, and just have a farmer to farmer discussion on that. So here goes. So Matt, what's new and exciting there on the farm? I know here we're starting to feel like it's winter for real.
Hey, it's been good. We're getting ready for winter down here. I imagine you guys are in winter up there by now, but certainly starting to feel like it around here.
Yeah, we had winter. We had about 26 inches of snow the other week, and that's all gone. Then we had rain for a couple of days, but it's starting to feel more, 20s. We did have some single digits while the snow was here, but winter's definitely here though.
Yeah, I don't mind snow if it's cold to go along with it. This snow and then wet, rainy weather, that's not my cup of tea. We've kind of been swinging from a couple days cold and then a couple days wet and rainy. So it's not the ideal weather, but we're glad for the rain. We've needed it. But I still have some sheep out grazing, so I don't like rainy weather this time of year when I still have sheep out grazing with it being rainy and still getting kind of cold. Seems kind of miserable for them, but the interesting thing is we worry about those out there grazing, then we close our barn up so the ones at home don't get cold and then they get pneumonia and die, and the ones that are out grazing are just fine. You go out there the next morning after a night of rain and they're all up and ready to eat and go.
The farmer asked me the other day, he said it's always tough to know, do you open up or do you close up? And hey, I've had the curtains, well, the one is part way down, the other one's the whole way up.
Yeah.
And there's no lambs yet.
Yeah.
It's not blowing.
Yeah.
I like to keep that fresh air in there as long as I can.
Yeah, for sure.
So one thing, our ground doesn't freeze very quickly up here.
Oh, yeah.
Usually we get snow cover and it doesn't freeze right away. And some years it never freezes.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had that 26 inches. What's melting from the bottom down? It just keeps coming down, and you get 4 more inches and 4 more inches, and keep plowing the driveway.
Yeah.
I know north of me, just 45, 50 minutes, they had like over 50 inches.
Oh, wow.
At one time, like it dumped it.
Wow. Yeah.
So anyway, I don't. Yeah, it'd be fun to do that, once in a while. But
yeah,
I don't need that too often.
Once you're in January or February, that's okay. This time of year, I'm not quite ready for anything crazy like that.
Right.
And actually, we got a pretty cold week coming up here, and I'm looking forward to that because the fields that I'm on with the ewes is actually on a buddy's farm, and they till and work all their ground. We're grazing some barley grain up there, but man, until work ground like that with a little bit of rain, boy, it just gets a muddy mess. And when you have a grain field like that you're trying to not mess up, it's just no fun. I'm looking forward to some cold weather here and freeze the ground and get out of the mud for at least a couple of days here. So but how's you did all your breeding earlier?
Yeah, everything's.
Yeah,
I have a ram back in with some ewe lambs right now, but
yeah,
everything should have been
we just turned our rams out to our fall lambing ewes or ewes that lambed here this fall. And some ewe lambs that um we had bred earlier, and then whichever we scanned them and whatever came up open, get another shot in this group, and if they don't make it, then they'll be on a truck to New Holland here this winter. But we're starting to scan everything after breeding and get rid of those open ewes quicker.
Yeah, they might as well not be along for the free ride, really.
Yeah. I mean, we were going over it a bit. If you figure whatever your numbers are, it costs you 30, 50 cents a day to feed a ewe. By the time you get into late gestation, it's probably closer to the 50 cents a day to feed a ewe. So if we can get them out of there, say, 3-4 months earlier, really, because if we just breed everyone and then get rid of those ewes, like a month after everyone else lamb, we realize this one's not going to lamb and get rid of them then. That's soon a couple months down the road. So, yeah, it's something we just started doing this year, is scanning every group. I'm kind of liking it so far. Plus, with going into winter, you get tight on barn space. It's even better reason to get those ewes out of there. So, yeah. So that's what we're doing.
Yep. I had a call today from Austin Brown.
Yeah.
With Penn State. He called today. We're working at putting a plan together for a workshop here.
Yeah.
Probably like end of May, beginning of June.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, so
I had heard about it. I see all the emails from PA Sheep and Wool Growers Association, since my wife helps with that.
Yeah.
So I saw that you guys were working on that. So I'll be cool having something up there.
I don't know. It's probably going to center around. It's going to be nutrition and parasite, along with forage and pasture management.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that'll be cool.
Interesting to see how that all works out.
Yeah. I mean, do you expect a good turnout up in your area? I know there's not quite as many people up there, but there's not a lot of sheep events up there either. So
there's not, and there is sheep up here. I mean, if you go even as far south as Mercer, there is sheep.
Yeah. So you might get a good turnout.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Austin's dad used to have some events because his family's been in the sheep industry.
And they're right out your way, right?
Oh yeah, he's not that far from me.
Yeah.
Like 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah. We had a little bit of excitement here today. We had a busload of vet students from North Carolina State University, I guess it is, stopped in for a farm tour. They said they were out your way beginning of the week. I guess they were touring all of Pennsylvania, like they toured a bunch of other dairy farms and a reindeer farm, and just touring a bunch of different farms. So they had stopped in here. So that was fun. North Carolina has a pretty good sheep program. So there's quite a few of them that were into the sheep thing. So they said they were glad for a break from touring dairy farms and just seeing cows. And
yeah,
it was nice to see some sheep again.
Right.
So that was fun.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts by now on how your fall lambing went? Did you pencil out your percentages of ewes exposed, ewes that lambed?
Yeah, I did. Our overall percentages were nothing to brag about. And there was some winners and losers in there that we can talk about that maybe drug our overall percentage down. But our lamb crop, then we got out of them. I was really happy with that. I know for a while there we were running right up almost 200%. I think we ended up like 190 that we dropped, the live lambs that we dropped and tagged. So that was for fall lambing. I was really happy with that. Of course, there's um, some Romanovs in there that are helping pull that up a bit too. But um, since we've started using the cedar program and the Peachy 600, the Peachy 600 has really brought our fall lambing percentages up. So it used to be with natural breeding, our lambing percentage was much lower. And since we started with doing the cedars and the Peachy 600 together, I don't know exactly which is causing it, but from what I know, I think it's the Peachy 600s increasing that lambing percentage for us. So that was good. So no, we had a good lamb crop. Like I said, our overall totals were nothing to brag about too much. Actually, we were only at 53% overall, but there was some ewes in there that we had bought in and lamb just to take later, and then weaned their lambs and tried to breed them right back, so they weren't quite on the program. And there was also some our yearling ewes that are lambing for the first time at a year old. We had them on our accelerated program as well this year, which there's quite a few of those ewes that bred back. I'm a little on the fence what we'll do there in the future. I know a lot of guys that do the accelerated program won't do it with their yearling ewes, and I can kind of see why. It's a little, asking a lot for you to lamb at a year old and then right away 8 months later. But still, I like to see which genetics can do that. We did not pull those ewes out and feed them separate at all. We probably should have. So I think in the future, that's one thing we'll do is if we're breeding yearlings, we'll definitely keep them separate. So I learned some interesting things. We have been reusing some of our cedars. So you use them one time, and when you pull them out, you can put them in the freezer and freeze them, and then you can use them again, supposedly. I know I talked with some producers that have been doing that, are successful with it, and I should say that they're not labeled for that. They're one-time use is what they're labeled for. But so we have been doing some of that.
Were you doing any type of wash or anything after you pulled them?
We didn't. I was told that you can wash them with just a very light detergent, but you would really want to be careful you don't use anything too strong, so you don't wash all the hormones or whatever's on there off. We didn't. I felt with freezing them, you're probably going to kill whatever's on there, if there's any bacteria or anything on there. But I was just looking at, this was the first year that I kept track of if there's a difference between the ones that have used cedars in and the ones that have new cedars in, and our conception rates were much lower on the used cedars. Now, I didn't dig into that. I'm not sure how random of an example. Like I should dig into it a little more and make sure that it wasn't just that it was a certain type of ewes that ended up getting the cedars or a certain group that ended up getting the used cedars. But from what I'm seeing, our conception rates were a lot lower with the used cedars. And I had actually already decided that we're probably not going to continue doing that, partially because, well, for one, we're leaving our cedars in for like 10 to 12 days. So we're leaving it in for a long time. So I'm guessing there's not as much hormone or whatever's on those things to start with, on already, because instead of like the pack recommend of 5 days, I think legally in. We're doing 10 to 12 days, so that has to pull down the life of those, I would think.
Yeah,
And
I
the
would
other
agree.
thing is just with being a more of a seed stock flock, the risk of spreading diseases with cedars. I don't know. I just kind of decided that we'll probably not do that anyway. And now seeing these results, I'm kind of convinced of that. But
Yeah, we reused cedars this year too, and
yeah,
without digging into it too hard, just a casual observation, I'm convinced that the ewes that had the initial cedar definitely had a higher success rate.
yeah,
Now we didn't cedar as many animals as you did, but just by looking at the ewes that lambed first
mm-hmm.
would have had the new cedar, the unused cedar,
Well,
and the ones that were lamb later would have been out of the second round using the cedar,
yeah,
and almost next to none of them. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
my first round of cedars were probably at about a 50 to 65% of them took
yeah,
on the first round.
yeah, yeah. That's, I mean, our first group, which was a pretty diverse group of ewes, is the ones I had experimented with it on. And like with the new cedars, we had like a 65% conception rate. With the where we reused cedars, we had like a 28% conception rate. So there was a huge difference there. And like I said, I should maybe dig into that a little more. But when we're leaving those cedars in for 10 to 12 days, um, and then to pull them and put them in another year for another 10 to 12 days, that seems like we have to be stretching that life cycle way beyond what it was intended for.
Right.
But I have talked with producers that are doing it and seem to think it works. So I don't know if we're missing something, but I don't think we'll be doing that anymore. It definitely cut down the price a lot because those cedars are like $8 a piece or something.
Yeah,
So
at least that, depending where you get them. And the thing we have to keep in mind is we go through this protocol. We got to get those sheep in the corral. We put the cedar in. So many days we pull that cedar. We give our PG 600, and all that stuff has to be on schedule. And now, if we cut our success rate, you basically cut your success in half
yeah,
from a 60 some percent to a 28 whatever
yeah,
percent.
yeah,
Now suddenly your cedar that cost you $8, if you divide it out over your total use.
yeah.
I know my wife and I were talking, and she's like, "Are you sure this is worth this hassle for these trying to get more fall lambs?" And I'm like, "Well, if you take your PG 600 and your cedar, what do you got? $15."
Yeah, yeah,
So that's not too bad. Well,
right.
we got the lambs on the ground, and she can count, and I can count. And then we had this Cache Valley problem on top of it. And suddenly those the lambs with the additional $15 in them. So now only half those used took. So now we're at $30.
Yeah,
And then we lost almost half the lambs to Cache Valley. So now yeah. So
yeah, yeah. That percentage really gets you. It's not just the cost per ewe. If we're doing cedars and we're doing these programs, we have to get to a point where we're getting a pretty high percentage of the used bred, or it just gets too expensive. But that Cache Valley thing, you want to talk about that? What's been? I mean, you hear about it. I haven't seen any, but it's something you hear about a lot.
well, so I heard about it before, and in talking about it some here, I think I saw it in maybe one lamb a couple years ago, and the only way I would have the giveaway was the deformed legs. Like the back legs were literally bent in a U, like a shepherd's crook, out the back, like up around. The only reason I was familiar with it was I had a shepherd call me maybe 2 years ago and was talking about this problem they were having. And in the course of conversation, either I talked to somebody or they were talking to their vet. We found out this is Cache Valley. And I just always thought that was something that was, I don't know. I mean, we talk about blue tongue, black leg in some other states. I don't know, is that west or southwest? I don't know what all area is a hotbed for that, but do we talk about black leg?
Right. We've never seen it.
Never seen it. We don't vaccinate for it. I don't know of anybody in the area that vaccinates for it.
Yeah.
I thought it was something like that. And I think maybe sometime between when I had that first initial encounter with it with another shepherd, I heard a couple other people talk about it here or there, but never thought it was anything happening too local on any scale.
Well, I was just looking it up here because I don't honestly know that much about it, and it looks like it's transmitted by mosquitoes. Is that?
Yeah, mosquitoes.
Which kind of, I mean, your area up there is wetter. You would have more mosquitoes.
We do. We have a lot of swamps, a lot of lakes and puddles and ponds. So I was talking to, well, the other day when we were on that call with Dan Morkel, Dr. Dan Morkel, we talked about it briefly. And I was over in Ohio at the Buckeye Shepherd Symposium the other Saturday and was talking with a producer. And there was a vet there, a retired vet. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. And we got to chit-chatting about it. And a lot of club lamb guys, if they're trying to get lambs early, see, something that was working against me was when we were trying to breed.
Yeah.
Because according to what some of the vets have been telling me, and if you look up, like Cornell has an article on their website about it, if a ewe, see, how is this? If a ewe is infected with Cache Valley prior to day 32 of pregnancy, the fetus will usually abort. If infection occurs between day 32 and 37, the fetus is likely to have musculoskeletal and some lesions and stuff. If it's after 37 days, it can probably get through fine with no defects.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have a window there where the sheep can be infected and where it's going to make a problem.
Gotcha.
And interestingly enough, when I look back on this whole thing, the ewes were short-bred, and I noticed a ewe with a discharge. And I thought, well, she just lost her lambs. And it happens.
Right.
Short-bred, I mean, I say short-bred, I'm going to say 45 days maybe.
Yeah.
Looking back now, it could be that's what happened. I don't know. So the other interesting factor is I had 2 groups of sheep in 2 separate parts of the farm. The one group, I had to spread my cedars out because I only have so much ram power. So the first group that had the cedars pulled and would have been bred, there was no deformed lambs, no lambing problems. Everything was no dead lambs. The second group, which would have had the cedars put in I'm just talking like a week later or something like that, 10 days later, and those cedars would have been being pulled later. They would have been bred later. They were also on another part of the farm. That group is the one where, what was the first? I had what looked like basically full-term lambs born dead. And then we had 2 ewes that had trouble lambing. Put a glove on. As soon as I had my arm in there, I was like, something's wrong. It felt like a shoulder was coming first, and then I got a hold of the head, and I thought the lamb was upside down. Here the neck was just bent so far back around. The knees were fused they were curved back around. They were like lock solid. I basically had usually when you put your hand in, if the legs are down, I kind of cup my hand around the foot and bring it up around. So they're coming feet first with their head kind of over top their legs. Well, I couldn't bring the leg up. And it's almost impossible for you to have a lamb with the head bent back and the legs bent down. Like that just don't work.
Yeah.
So we had 4 lambs like that, and most of them were actually born live, but obviously didn't make it. Like twisted spines, twisted necks, legs.
So even though their joints were like fused together, they weren't dead yet.
No.
Okay. Huh. That's crazy. Because I've had like occasionally you get this kind of mummified lamb that's been dead for a while. His joints are all stiff and maybe all twisted up, and they're just miserable to get out. But they were actually still alive at that point. They were just all messed. Huh.
Yeah, I don't think in my reading, I'm pretty sure you won't normally see one fetus affected and the other one not.
So it's usually both.
Yeah.
So does that, like when you would have been breeding beginning of May, and that would probably coincide
beginning of June.
Beginning of June.
We were later than what you were, yeah.
Okay. And that would be about when you start seeing mosquitoes in your area, probably. Like, do you think that's what it was, or do you think just like when the disease was more prevalent, like the later ewes got it worse, was the disease just more prevalent in the area by that time?
The interesting thing is, do you remember me talking about how hot it was?
Yeah.
It was some of the hottest days we had this past summer, right when I had those rams in. Like, and we had a dry summer.
Yeah.
Now, somebody told me that dry summers can be worse for mosquitoes.
Really?
For bugs. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I would have thought a wet year would be worse for mosquitoes.
You would think so, but...
Well, I guess if you got a wet year, you keep washing that water out, versus to a dry year, you have more stagnant water sitting around.
That was this person's theory, I think.
Yeah. And early on like that, you probably weren't that dry yet.
Yeah, I can't remember how dry it was at the beginning of June. I just know that I knew it was hot, and I was like, boy, I hope these things settle.
Yeah.
The rams were marking ewes, and so I knew he was active.
Yeah.
So anyway,
going forward in your winter lambing, you probably won't have to worry about it necessarily.
No,
by the time you're breeding in September, the mosquitoes are all froze off for you guys, or maybe not quite yet.
Well, probably not quite yet. But the other thing is that this sheep can build immunity to this Cache Valley. It's not like I don't think it's a guarantee they can't get it, but I've been describing it to people as like chicken pox.
Yeah.
You almost only get it once.
Yeah. So you might still have some others that get affected, but once it kind of runs through your flock, and it's only so from what you were saying, it's only going to affect the lambs if the ewe's bred when she gets it.
Right, and only the fetus is only susceptible in kind of that very fragile.
Yeah.
I mean, that early gestation is the most fragile time for the fetus, probably.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is a sheep could get bit and infected any other time of the year.
Yeah.
Before she's bred or after she's bred. You only have that small window.
Yeah.
I say small window. What were those days I had said earlier? Like,
I think it's
days. prior to day 32, they'll probably just drop the lambs.
Yeah. So the first 30 days, you'll probably just abort it.
Yeah.
But then the deformities happen from 30 days to...
The Cornell article says 32 to 37. It's only 5. You might as well say a week.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, so that isn't, that's like 37 days, say 40 days window.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, there is a vaccine for it, I believe.
No.
Not.
There isn't. No.
Okay. Yeah. So there's really nothing to do other than you get time your breedings at a time of year.
And I don't you have things like this.
Yeah.
It's just you get the weather pattern just right.
Well,
So,
you get that initial infection, and it sounds like for you it was a pretty bad initial infection. And then from there on out, if you do get cases, they should be less and less. Like they should build up immunity to it.
Right. And I don't know if anything transfers to a lamb. Probably not.
The immunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, an animal has a very big opportunity to become infected in a safe period of its life.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And if you're usually breeding in the fall, you should be at a safer time anyway. So.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So well, anyway, that cut into the profitability of our whole cedar project and everything, but we do have some nice lambs on the ground.
Yeah.
We don't have many, but so I'm glad we got what we did.
Yeah. 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 And hopefully, going forward, that won't be an issue, but, yeah, that's that's the thing with these fall lambs. Like there is an expense with it, and it, I think sometimes, the biggest hurdle almost for us is just the management part. Because we're doing this accelerated lambing, we're splitting up our flock in different groups. Basically, we have 2 flocks always. One, then you throw groups of ewe lambs in there. Now, soon you have multiple flocks, and you're feeding these ewes well. You're putting them on this program, and then the ones that don't take, you got to flip back to your once a year program. There is a lot of hassle in there, but I still, we had a good crop of lambs. Actually, our biggest fall lambing crop that we've ever had, just because of the amount of ewes that we had bred. Not that our percentages were that great, but and so that means we'll have a nice group of lambs to sell this winter. And I don't know. I think it's worth it, but there's definitely a lot of work and hassle that goes into it, and yeah, you learn as we go.
And if you can take a quality fall-born lamb to market, you'll be grinning.
Yeah, I'm looking at the next couple winters here with the way the Ramadan holiday and the Eid holiday keep moving up into wintertime. Those fresh, heavy lambs in the wintertime are going to be worth a premium, I think. So, definitely. I don't think I'll be regretting it in January, February when we're selling these lambs at all.
Right. So one thing I wondered, Matt, do you see how many of these ewes that lambed in the fall did not lamb in January, February? Any of them?
Very few. There was some ewes that we had bought in, ewe lambs that we had bought in, that some of them didn't breed for winter lambing, and those we gave another chance to breed in the springtime, and some of them bred. I don't know exactly what the percentage was, but some of them bred. we won't be doing that again. And that's not normal protocol for us. If a ewe doesn't lamb in the wintertime, she's gone. Is kind of our protocol. That was, it was ewes we had bought in, and they're always harder to ewe lambs you buy in and breed. They're always harder to get on the program. But um, I think for us, the other piece is going to be start calling those ewes that are not doing our fall lambing, or just even, I know in the last couple, or I should say maybe last 2 or 3 years, we haven't been as strict on our calling as I'd like to be. Just with, we were growing our flock, and sometimes you just don't get it done. You just don't sit down and look at the data and see who's actually doing what you want them to. um I think the other piece is going to be getting some of those ewes out of there that are just not, doing the fall lambing at all, or even just in general. So like, my calling protocol now is I look at the previous 2 years of data, and if she didn't lamb in the fall, so in that time when in our flock she would have had 3 chances to lamb. If she only lambed in 2 of those, that's fine, but she better had at least twins. And this varies depending what breed we're talking about. But for our Katahdins and our commercial flock, um, yeah, so just being a little more strict on calling, I think we can increase these percentages too. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I guess the reason I asked that question was these ewes that I have here that lambed in the fall, I've just been trying to decide if I want to re-expose them or if I want to just breed them again in let's say April or May.
Yeah.
And
Keep
see
them
if
on
we
that fall lambing schedule.
right.
Yeah.
Not accelerate them, just keep them on the fall schedule.
You might be able to do that. Um, I'm not a big fan of that, and only because I did it one time. There was the very first year we tried fall lambing. We had decent conception rates, and that was without cedars or anything. So I was thinking like you, well, rather than breeding these ewes back and having them lamb in May, we're trying to get this fall lambing going. I'm just going to keep these ewes and breed them next spring to lamb in the fall again. Well, the kicker was almost not. The next year we had very poor fall lambing percentages, and very few of those ewes bred. So now, you know,
Were they too fat?
uh, I don't know. Like I said, this was early on our fall lambing journey.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember because when the same year that you had boatloads of them, we did like everything the same, and I didn't have a single one, I don't think.
Yeah, and I had some of your ewes. I had
Well,
bought
that's
some
right.
commercial ewes from you that year, um, and had success with them.
I remember that too.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. So that's my concern with that. But I do know there is some flocks that are doing that are, trying to really just do the fall lambing. But my problem is if she doesn't breed then for fall lambing, then you say you breed her for the next winter. Well, now you're out 18 months between lambing, and that's not going to pay any bills.
And if you're not careful, you're going to have a pretty fat ewe.
Yeah, yeah, that's the other thing. You'd really have to watch that. So, it probably depends a lot on your system. Um, if it might be worth a try. Like for us, well, and for us, part of the reason we got on this accelerated system was we would, lamb in the wintertime, and then we'd turn our ewes out on grass all summer, and we had good grass. We don't really have any really low quality pastures to put them on, so our ewes would get fat with the once a year program. So yeah, I'm sold on the accelerated thing. I time and time again I talk with producers that want to do just the fall lambing, and boy, you got to be committed to it. I'm just not convinced that it's really worth it on the commercial side. But yeah,
Yeah, you have another option if you give them the opportunity in the spring.
yeah,
The lamb in the spring.
and that's a nice thing. Like we're talking about the extra cost with trying to get these ewes bred for fall, but it's an extra lamb crop. You know, we're still going to get our 2 spring lamb crops. So this is a bonus. So yeah, we put some extra money in it. We're going to put some extra money in feeding those ewes, but it's still a bonus lamb crop. So I think we have some margin there to work with.
Yeah.
When we're done with the fall lambing, I'd also like to talk about our AI program we did.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did those percentages look against your natural bred? Hey folks, thanks for sticking with us and listening thus far. This episode got pretty lengthy, so before diving into the discussion on how the AI breedings went that Matt did there on his farm, we decided to split the episode right at this point, and we will bring that one to you next time. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you folks all have a wonderful new year.